Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very interesting topic. Your forecast is lying and your board doesn't even know it. And that's not an exaggeration, that's the rot beneath most GTM teams. Because every quarter across SaaS, IT services, products, whatever, we parade into monthly business reviews and quarterly business reviews armed with confidence. The pipeline is padded, the stages are updated, and the math checks out. And yet you miss again, again, and again. And I want to tell you why with no filters. Let me start with the pipeline illusion. Right? You think your pipeline is a forecast? No, it's a hallucination dressed up in some presentation or Excel sheet. You are not predicting revenue, you're projecting hope onto a spreadsheet or a presentation. And in one of my earlier role, I walked into a QBR thinking that I had nailed it. I had $2.5 million in pipeline and stage weighted probability with 35%. We showed 840K in forecasted revenue. I had already told everyone, finance, leadership, delivery, that we exceeded target. And then deals stalled. Buyers ghosted. And champions left. Right? So procurement delays, new CFOs and new priorities. And final revenue was probably about $500,000. Barely 20% of what we committed. And yet no one questions the model, right? Because the forecast looked scientific, right? It had weighted math, it had trend lines, it had funnel stages and conversion history. It feels bulletproof, right? But I feel that it's all theater. We weren't forecasting revenue, we were presenting a lie with confidence. And here is the truth most marketers can't handle. You don't have a pipeline problem, you have a fiction problem. You're feeding your board numbers that were dead on arrival. Why? Because you are measuring the wrong things. You are tracking stage progression when you should be tracking signal momentum. You're counting volume when you should be tracking decay. You're assigning probability by position when you should assign it by velocity. Right? Every time you say we got 2 million, 3 million in pipe, we are safe, ask yourself, how many of those opportunities had a signal in the last 7 days? How many have actually moved? How many are stalled but still inflating your forecast? Because that's the part no one tells you. Most of your forecast is stale, silent, and already dead. And I'm sure most of you and your CEOs and leadership will agree to this. Most of your forecast is stale, silent, and already dead. But you don't have the system to see it. So you commit anyway because the math says so, because the formula feels safe, because last quarter it worked. And I want to start off with the 3 big lies in every forecast. Let me expose the 3 fake pillars that kill GTM performance quarter after quarter. Lie number 1 is later stage is equal to probability. If a deal sits untouched in stage 4 for 16 days, it's not 90%. It's decomposing. Time without signal is a rot. That brings us to the lie number 2. More pipeline is equal more coverage. You think 50 deals give you safety. But if 42 of them haven't moved in weeks and months, you're not forecasting. You're holding ghosts. And that brings us to the lie number 3. Weighted probability is equal precision. Stage weighted forecasting feels like science. Stage 1, 10%. Stage 2, 25%. Stage 3, 50%. And proposal, 75%, etc. Right? But buyers don't move linearly. They pause, they ghost, they restart, They disappear and maybe they appear again. And the focus doesn't adjust because your math assumes humans are robot. And here is what makes this criminal. No one inside your CRM is tracking decay. No one is watching momentum die. No one is alerting you. The 63% of your pipeline hasn't had a signal in the last 14 days, 30 days, 60 days, 180 days, right? But it's still sitting there. I have seen CRMs with opportunities aging 200, 250 days, silently inflating your forecast, fueling bad decisions, feeding investor optimism, driving misalignment with sales. And I want to talk to you about the forecast that broke me, right? And I'll never forget this one QBR. The CFO looked at our forecast and he said that this looks great. If even 60% of this lands, we are above board target. I nodded. I knew it wouldn't. Because I had already seen three of our biggest opportunities stall, right? One where the procurement pushed it to the next quarter, and where we kind of lost our VP who was a champion, right? And then one was being shopped for lower pricing by a competitor. But they were still in forecast at 75% and 90% a commitment, right? At commitment, right? And I walked out of that QBR realizing something brutal. Forecasts are not based on truth. They are based on silence, hope, and the illusion of motion. So what am I saying? You don't have a forecasting problem, right? You have a stage labeling system. And let that land for a moment, right? Because what most GTM teams call a forecast, it is just an annotated graveyard. It looks like a pipeline. It feels like a forecast, but it's static. It's dead and deceitful. Right? You think your CRM is showing you opportunity, but it's showing you still frames from a movie that's already over. So let me explain why most pipeline math fails. And it's not because you're bad at sales or marketing. It's because your entire GTM operating system is built on static snapshots, not dynamic systems. And here is what your CRM is telling you. Stage 1 proposal sent, value 84,000, right? Close date this quarter. Probability 60%, 75%. And last touch is, let's say, 2 weeks ago to 3 weeks ago. And what the system is doing in response to that 2 week, 3 weeks silence, nothing, right? No alert, no probability drop, no signal decay, no motion tracking. It's still sitting there like a good little 75% inline item on your board forecast. Meanwhile, the buyer has forgotten who you are. That's why the problem isn't forecasting, it's what you are forecasting, right? You're forecasting volume instead of velocity. You're forecasting presence instead of progression. You're forecasting labels instead of movement. And that's the problem, because in reality, pipeline doesn't convert, motion does. Readiness doesn't close, momentum does, and stage doesn't matter, velocity does. And let me say that again, a slow moving stage 4 deal is less valuable than a fast moving step 2 or a stage 2, right? Because speed beats stage every single time, right? Every day a deal sits idle, it decays. That's the secret no CRM ever tells you. A deal that is 30-year old with no signal, it doesn't stay the same. It gets worse. And here is what the data shows. Deals with no new signals in 1 week, 2 weeks have lesser than 15% chance of closing that quarter. If a deal goes 3 weeks, 4 weeks of silence, win rate drops to single digits. Deals that slow down after the demo stage have less than 8% chance of closing on time. Still, if you think your forecast means anything, still think that proposals from 3 weeks ago is 75% likely. You are assigning numbers to a dead lead. And I want to start off with a fallacy of stage-based certainty. Right? Your GTM team has been trained to think in stages. Stage 1, discovery. Stage 2, demo schedule. Stage 3, proposal. Stage 4, negotiation or with procurement. And stage 5, closed won or lost. And each has an assigned probability. That's where the rot begins. Because what does proposal send actually mean? That you emailed a PDF, that the account executive checked a box, that the Salesforce incremented a number. That's not a buyer movement. That's an internal documentation. You're forecasting sales activity, not buyer action. So how does momentum actually work? Real buyers show signals. They reply, they ask budget questions, they add procurement to the loop, they request revisions, they escalate internally, they click on the ROI calculator that you kind of shared with them a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a month ago. They download the case studies and forward it internally. These are micro signals of motion and they expire fast. That's what you should be forecasting. No stages, not deal size, not probability, but signal freshness, signal frequency, signal velocity, right? Forecasting is not about what's in your pipeline. It's about what's still alive. It's about who is still moving. It's about how fast deals are accelerating or decaying. If you can answer how many directional signals happened this week, what is the average age of motionless opportunities, how many deals had no signal in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, how many deals are speeding up versus slowing down, then your forecast is just a hallucination of control. And I want to talk to you about the hidden cost of ignoring decay. If you are not tracking decay, you are forecasting against gravity. Deals don't just stay still, they rot in a place. And if you don't account for decay, you are over investing in stale deals, you are ignoring emerging momentum, you give fake confidence to executive and leadership, you leave your best deals unsupported, and you punish these sales representatives who are actually telling you the truth. Because the silent decay in your pipeline isn't visible until it shows up as a miss, close lost in your QBR, in your Salesforce CRM, in your presentation. And by then, it's already too late. Your forecast didn't just miss, it was built on a lie, but not just one lie, five. 5 deeply embedded assumptions that your entire GTM system treats as the truth. But they are not truths. They are institutionalized delusions that keep you running in circles. And I want to dismantle this one by one. Let's start with the lie number 1. Lie number 1, later stage is equal to higher probability. Right? And you know this one. The deeper a deal is in pipeline, the more committable it feels. Stage 1, 10%, stage 2, 30%, stage 3, 50%, stage 4, 75%, and then 90% or whatever. It looks reasonable, right? But here is the problem. Stage tells you where the deal is, but tells you nothing about whether it's moving. A deal that's been sitting in stage 3 for 3 weeks, month and a half with no buyer signal is not 50%. It's dead. It's just sitting in your CRM because nobody wants to remove it. In fact, studies show deals idle in stage 3 for more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks have less than 11% chance of closing that quarter. So what do most teams do? Nothing. They keep it in the forecast, they present it to the board, they build their hiring plan around that, and then they miss, not because they like pipeline, but because they trusted the label instead of the motion. And that brings us to the line number 2. Deal size is equal to deal strength. This one is especially dangerous. Your CRO will say that this one is big, 200k, 500k, a million and a half. We are focused on this. Great. But when was the last buyer signal? It has been quiet since the proposal, but they are reviewing. Right? Translation: you are chasing a whale that already swam away. Right? Big pipeline numbers create illusion of control, but size is not equal to intent. Size is not equal to motion. Size is not equal to closed probability. Right? And I want to repeat this. Right? Big pipeline creates illusion of control, but size is not intent. Size is not motion. Size is not closed probability. Worse, big silent deals create what I call the GTM black hole, right? They drain attention from healthy momentum, eat up executives' review cycle, distort your forecast with false optimism, and prevent you from reallocating support to fast moving smaller deals. And remember, a 40K deal with 4 signals in last 1 week, 10 days is much better than a 240K that is ghosting you. And that brings us to the line number 3. Weighted forecasting is equal to accuracy. This spreadsheet masterpiece, right? Take every deal, assign a stage, assign a weighted percentage, multiply by deal size, and sum it all up. Magic forecast, right? Except this whole formula depends on one assumption: the past averages are a predictor of present momentum. But in a volatile, fast moving B2B cycle, champions churn, budgets freeze, product priorities change, legal delays, they add like 3 weeks, competitor drops pricing 10%, 20%, offers something that you can't match, and your probability math doesn't know that. It's just multiplying ghosts by percentages. So stage-based forecasting is comfort math. It gives you a number, but it hides the motion. You would be better off tracking signal velocity, time decay, and buyer behavior pattern than any static weighted formula. That brings me to the line number 4, and that is commitment is equal close. One of the most beautiful fields in Salesforce where hope and pressure intersect. You have seen it. The CRO is short on coverage. They say, can we move this one to commit? And the account executive says, okay, maybe. They said they're trying to make it happen this quarter. Boom. Commitment marked. Right? The problem? Commit is not a data field. It is a political checkbox. It reflects what the sales rep wants to believe, what leadership needs to believe, but rarely what the buyer is actually doing. When you build forecast on commit numbers, you skew planning, you inflate pipe reality, you punish truth tellers and reward overconfidence. It's like telling your family you will win a lottery because you really want to, right? And that brings us to the line number 5. Forecasts are static. This one is subtle, but it's deadly. Most GTM organizations freeze their forecast. You know the drill, right? Forecast lock on the 10th of the quarter, right? Reps update close dates, operations finalize report, and executive send it to their leadership or board. And then what? Everyone walks away like the job is done. But buyers don't freeze, deals don't freeze, reality keeps moving. Legal delays push Q2 to Q3. New CFO resets vendor priorities. One of the champions on your buyer side exits and ghosting begins. Competition starts a bake-off. And what happens to your forecast? Nothing. Because your GTM system isn't built to track momentum. It's built to document status, not measure velocity. And you don't need a forecast, you need a motion index. Something that tells you, are deals speeding up or slowing down? Which opportunities are decaying? Which signals are still alive? Which opportunities need activation? Until then, you are not forecasting. You're just archiving the past and pretending it predicts the future. So what's the real takeaway, right? Most GTM's misses are not execution failure. They are forecasting delusions. You didn't miss your number. You trusted fake possibilities. You mistook big deal for strong deals. You labeled motionless opportunities as late stage confidence. And now we'll fix it. Because in the next section, I'll show you the actual system that top 5% teams use to forecast momentum, not madness, right? If traditional forecasting is fiction, then what replaces it, right? We don't fix this with more dashboard, okay? We fix it by replacing probability with physics, because here is what you have probably never been told. Deals don't close based on stage, they close based on speed, right? Velocity beats size, stage and intent, because a buyer moving fast is a buyer who is already sold, right? This is your new operating system. We focus not by what stage the deal is in, but by how fast and recently the buyer has taken meaningful action. And let me show you how this works, right? You take this opportunity in your pipeline and ask 3 questions. How many meaningful signals have occurred in the last 7 days to 10 days? Not just email opens or webinar views, we are talking about buying behavior, pricing requests, legal document requests, procurement involvement, addition of stakeholders, custom questions on security, feature, proposal, re-engagement after silence, tool comparison or ROI calculation. These are velocity triggers. The more directional signals in a compressed time window, the hotter the opportunity, right? And that brings us to the second question that you should ask. What's the signal density per day over the last 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? You're not just looking for emotion, you're looking for acceleration. 2 to 4 signals in the last 2 to 3 weeks, that's weak. 6 signals in the last 3 days to 7 days, that's what we call conversion turbulence, right? Deals with 5 plus direction signal in 10 days have more than 60% higher chance of closing on time in most B2B cycles. So let me say that again, right? Deals with more than 5 directional signals in the last 10 days to 2 weeks have more than 60% chance of closing on time in B2B cycles. And the CRM should highlight this, but most don't, because they weren't built to track velocity. They were built to track stages. The third question is the signal direction forward or backward? A buyer who loops in more decision maker, pushes for a legal review, revisits pricing, asks about onboarding timeline is equal to forward motion, right? But a buyer who requests another demo, who goes dark, repeats previous questions, resurfaces old objections, that is stalling, circling and backtracking. Velocity without direction is chaos. Velocity with direction is forecastable momentum. Now that brings us to a grid that you can use in practice, right? And I want to map this. You take every opportunity and score in 2 axes. Signal frequency, how many in 7 days, 14 days, 3 weeks, and signal direction, progress versus regression. And once you have this grid with regressive signals, progressive signals, low and high frequency, dead pipeline means no signal, bias disengage, forecast probability should be 0 to 5%. And if you have mild interest, maybe 1-2 signals over 2 weeks, forecast weight is 15 to 25%, that's passive opportunity. High activity but going nowhere, buyer is asking but not advancing, dangerous, right? This needs sales triage, right? This is the confusion zone. Multiple progressive signals, tight time window, this is your real forecast. You have to highlight it, invest in it and defend it. This is your active opportunity. And why this works? Because you're no longer forecasting what a rep thinks, you're forecasting what a buyer is actually doing. You're no longer predicting based on pipeline coverage, deal size, funnel stage, historical conversion rate, but you're predicting based on signal frequency, signal direction, time compression and acceleration, right? And let me tell you what will happen when you implement this velocity grid. You will cut your commit pipeline by 30-40%. You will double your win rate because you're focusing on the active opportunity by rerouting enablement to the right deals. You will catch decaying deals before they become the dead weight, and your marketing will start creating content not for personas but activation signals, right? Sales will stop arguing about lead quality because now you're focused on forecasting on behavior, not attribution. You didn't just fix your forecast, you rewired how the entire GTM org throughout the momentum. Right? So what should you do right now, right? If you're still forecasting based on stages, stop. This week, do this, right? Pull all open opportunities, audit their last 2 to 3 weeks days of buyer signals. Score signal frequency plus direction. Rebuild your forecast on velocity. You'll see the real revenue pattern. You will see which deals are alive, which are pretending. Most forecasts track what happened. The elite ones track what's happening right now. And if you want to build a GTM system that actually converts, you need to start treating your pipeline like a living organism, not a spreadsheet. Because every opportunity has a shelf life and every buyer signal is perishable. That brings us to what you should do now. Let's start with the step 1, build the decay curve. You wouldn't eat sushi left out for 4 hours, right? So why are you still forecasting the stage 3 deals with no signal for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? And that's why I want to introduce you to the decay curve. This is how your forecast should adjust based on time since last meaningful signals. So here is a very simple version: days since last signal and forecast weight modifier. So let's start with 0 to 3 days and you assign plus 10%. And if it is 4 to 7 days, then it is a baseline. So you don't have to make any changes to this. And then if it is 8 to 14 days, 1 to 2 weeks, then it's minus 25%. Right? And if it's more than 2 weeks, greater than 2 weeks, then it's minus 50%. And if it is more than 3 weeks, then it's 80%. So if a deal was marked as 75%, but it's been 18 days since the last trigger action, the deal now drops to 30-35%, right? Time kills deals. Forecasting without decay is like using expired data to predict the future. And why this is crucial, right? Decay modeling does 3 powerful things. Forces recency into your forecast. Only deals that are actively moving stays visible. Second, makes pipeline rot visible. You can't hide stalled opportunities in late stage labels. And the third one is creates urgency for reactivation. Sales start asking, how do we re-trigger this deal? It's no longer about pushing deals forward, it's about keeping them alive throughout the moment, right? And the step 2 is visualizing signal health with a heat map. Numbers aren't enough, you need visibility. Here is what elite GTM teams do, right? They build a signal heat map, a visual dashboard of a real-time buyer activity across all open opportunities. So numbers aren't enough, you need visibility. They build a signal heat map, a visual dashboard of real-time buyer activity across all open opportunities. So you can have a simple table with columns as days and rows as opportunities. And then you do the signal strength per day, color coded with green, high engagement, yellow, weak movement, or red, silent, and gray ghosted for more than 3 weeks or something. But imagine looking at a 7-day view of your pipeline and immediately seeing which deals are heating up, which deals are flatlining, which are trending in wrong direction, and which have false stage confidence with no signals behind them. This heat map changes everything because now your sales stand-ups aren't about status update, they are about activation strategy. That brings us to the step 3 is design a GTM momentum dashboard. This is not a nice to have, it's your command center. Here is what should be in it. Visible to sales, marketing operations, and leadership. And you have a signal activity feed like a GTM news ticker, shows latest buyer action by account. Second, you have signal velocity by stage, compare movement speed across different stages, and you'll be kind of shocked because many stage 2 deals will move faster than stage 2, and some early stage opportunities may be conversion ready, but you just didn't see it, right? The third is decay warning. So live alert of opportunities that have entered decay threshold. So there is no signal in 10 days, or you have probability auto adjusted by minus negative 25%, or move to stalled unless reactivated, right? And then the fourth is trigger to conversion cycle time. So instead of an opportunity age, measure how fast opportunities convert from trigger events. The one is momentum score per opportunity. So aggregate score based on recency, frequency, direction, trigger alignment, champion engagement. And no, Salesforce doesn't do this out of box. You need to build it, right? So use revenue or platform that get it, right? So what this changes is when you run on this system, sales stop sandbagging stale pipeline, and marketing starts building content that reactivates decay, and your operations team reroute support to fast moving opportunities, right? And leadership will finally stop chasing ghosts. And that is why I would say that, you have been focusing math, right? Now you will focus movement. And let's step back, right? Because for the past 20 to 30 minutes, we have dismantled everything you were taught about pipeline forecasting, right? That funnel stage determines probability, big pipeline equal confidence, volume offsets uncertainty, that Salesforce reflects the truth. But now you know better, because deals don't die in CRM, they die in silence, and no field in Salesforce will save you from that. So what you have just done, right? If you have followed this far, you have just gone through the most important shift in modern GTM. You have moved from old static forecast to live momentum system, old funnel stages to trigger events, weighted math to signal velocity, deal volume to signal health, probability guessing to buyer behavior tracking, and forecasting fiction to revenue realities. Forecasting is no longer a finance artifact, it's a GTM weapon. The teams that win in the next decade or so, they won't be the ones with the biggest CRM. They'll be the ones that can see momentum, act on decay, forecast signal velocity, and align entire GTM motion around movement, not myth. And if you only remember one thing, motion is the only reliable forecast. The pipeline doesn't lie, but the way you interpret it does. If there is no signal, there is no deal. If there is no velocity, there is no probability. If there is no direction, there is no revenue. You are no longer allowed to treat PDF proposals as progress, CRM checkboxes as signal, dead opportunities as hope, commitment as reality. You have outgrown all of that. From this moment forward, your forecast is about physics. Force, velocity, decay, direction, acceleration. Because buyers are in stages, they are signals in motion. If you have stayed this far, you are not average. You are not doing this for views or MQLs or job security. You're doing this because you want to be the top 5%. The marketers who don't just run campaigns, they run systems. The operators who don't chase leads, they engineer velocity. The revenue leaders who don't guess, they observe movement like physics and intervene with precision. You don't run forecast, you run forecast. And the rest of the organization, they'll either follow you or get left behind. If you want more content like these, if you want to improve your sales process, your marketing, and become one of the best marketing organizations in the world, then they are inside my newsletter. Link is below. Every week or so, I send exclusive breakdowns like this to the top 5% of marketers and founders building GTM systems that actually work. No fluff, no copy paste tactics, just frameworks that drive the movement. Today we already have about 1,500 CEOs on the newsletter and about 2,000 to 4,000 marketing leaders from tech companies. So join them and focus like the future depends on you. Until next time, cheers.